Billionaire Family slapped a black CEO at a gala seconds later, she slapped their empire back. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. The ballroom glittered under 1,000 glass lights, every reflection sharp enough to cut. Laughter poured like champagne light, expensive and selective. And then came the sound that sliced through it all. A slap, hard, echoing, followed by a voice that could chill marble. "Get your hands off me. You don't belong here." The crowd froze mid-breath, heads turned, phones lifted, and in the center of it all, Amara Lewis, in a dark silk gown, one earring slightly tilted from the blow. She didn't move. She didn't blink. Only her eyes, calm, steady, absorbing every fragment of that humiliation like evidence. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Amara. The woman who struck her, Veronica Bennett, clutched her pearls as if righteousness was a trophy. "Security!" she barked, shaking. "Get this woman out of here before she steals something." Her husband, Richard, smirked quietly beside her. "You'd think these events had better screening." A murmur rolled through the ballroom. People weren't whispering to defend her, they whispered to distance themselves. That's how prejudice breathes, not in shouts, but in silence. Amara exhaled once. Her cheek stung, but her voice didn't rise. She reached for the clutch at her side, not to defend herself, but to hold her balance to keep her body from trembling with fury. Across the room, waiters froze mid-step. One of them, a young black man named Ellis, mouthed a silent no. He'd seen it before. Not this exact slap, but the same energy, different room, same insult. Veronica lifted her chin higher. "People like you always sneak into places you don't belong." "Whither?" The words landed heavier than the slap itself. A few guests looked away. A few recorded. Because phones are braver than people. Amara didn't answer. She turned slowly, her gaze sweeping the room from the orchestra that had stopped mid-song to the marble stairs she had paid to renovate 3 years ago, to the golden crest at the end of the hall that read, "Lewis Foundation Gala 2025. No one noticed it yet. No one connected the dots. Not yet. But something in her silence unsettled them. Veronica stepped back, sensing a shift she couldn't name. "Don't just stand there," she hissed to a guard. "Remove her!" The guard hesitated because power, even unspoken, has gravity. Amara's voice finally broke the air, low, precise, controlled. "Are you sure you want to do that?" A single sentence. Not loud, but it stopped the guard mid-step. The crowd leaned closer. The violins were still. The slap was still echoing in the chandeliers. And for the first time that night, Veronica Bennett, the woman who thought she owned the room, realized she might have just hit the wrong person. The slap still echoed through the chandeliers. But it wasn't the sound that lingered, it was the silence that followed, the kind that made people realize they'd just witnessed something irreversible. Amara stood exactly where she had been struck, her posture straight, her dignity intact. She didn't reach for her cheek. She didn't defend herself. She adjusted the single earring that had tilted in the commotion, a movement so calm it felt like a command. Security still hadn't moved. The guard's hand hovered in midair, unsure which side of history he stood on. Veronica hissed. "Do you know who I am?" Amara finally looked at her, not up, not down, just through. "I do," she said softly. "That's why I'm giving you a second to breathe before this gets worse." The guests exchanged nervous glances. They couldn't tell if Amara was bluffing or warning, but her voice carried a weight that made even the chandeliers seem to dim. A waiter near the champagne tower whispered, "Isn't this her event?" Another replied, "No way, she's not on the Bennett list." But in the far corner, a woman in a silver gown, the event coordinator, had stopped checking her clipboard. Her expression shifted from confusion to dread. She knew the name Amara Lewis. Everyone in the business world did. Across the room, Veronica laughed, brittle and sharp. Oh, please. You think standing still makes you powerful. Security. The guard took one hesitant step forward, but Amara turned slightly, her eyes calm, voice steady. You're about to make a career decision. Think carefully before you touch me. The guard froze. His radio crackled, but he didn't reach for it. The hierarchy of fear had just shifted. Richard Bennett tried to intervene, his voice low but dripping with superiority. Listen, Miss whatever your name is, why don't you just leave quietly before this becomes embarrassing? Amara tilted her head. For whom? He blinked. At that moment, her assistant, a woman named Kara, slipped through the ballroom doors, holding a phone to her ear. Ma'am, do you want me to initiate the review? Amara didn't even turn around. Not yet. Let them finish writing their own story first. The air thickened. Cameras were still rolling discreetly, live streams already finding their way onto a dozen phones. A couple near the front whispered, "She's handling this like a board meeting." And in a way, she was. Inside her mind, memory replayed like a film reel. 22 years old, denied entry to a corporate gala because assistants used the service door. The same insult, different faces. She had promised herself that night she'd never explain her worth to anyone again. Back in the present, Veronica crossed her arms. You're lucky we don't press charges for trespassing. Amara smiled faintly. And you're lucky I don't press record on what just happened here. The words landed like thunder, masked as velvet. Veronica turned red. You can't threaten me in my own circle. That's your problem, Amara said, her tone cool and cutting. You think circles define power. I build them. A ripple ran through the crowd. The event coordinator took another step closer, quietly pulling out her tablet. Her screen glowed the name Lewis Foundation, blinking under the event sponsor header. Her lips parted. Oh my God, she whispered. This entire gala, it's hers. But Amara didn't need to say it. She simply straightened her gown, checked her reflection in a passing glass, and said one final line before walking toward the stage. You've mistaken grace for weakness. Don't confuse the two again. End quote. The band didn't play. The crowd didn't breathe. Every phone lens followed her, realizing too late the woman they'd just tried to humiliate was the one who paid for every light in the room. The room was heavy. The kind of silence that trembles, not because it's peaceful, but because it's ashamed. Every sparkle from the chandeliers now felt like a spotlight, and under it truth was about to move. Near the back, a young woman in a gray uniform, no jewelry, no name tag, held a tablet tight to her chest. Her name was Renee Miles, one of the catering assistants hired through an agency. She wasn't supposed to speak. She wasn't even supposed to stand near the main hall, but she had seen something the others pretended not to. Her voice cracked softly through the air. Wait, I think there's been a mistake. Heads turned. Veronica's glare sliced toward her like a blade. Excuse me? Who are you to interrupt? Renee swallowed hard. The name Amara Lewis. It's on the sponsor list. Right here. She turned her screen outward. The Lewis Foundation logo glowed bright across the header. The same crest etched on the ballroom wall. Whispers surged instantly. She's the sponsor? No, that can't be. Then what did Veronica just do? Richard Bennett tried to wave it off. Probably a clerical error. We handle the donor lists personally. Renee's voice steadied. No, sir. I printed them myself an hour ago. The guard, who'd hesitated earlier, stepped closer to see the screen. His face dropped. It's her event. That sentence was louder than any scream. The ripple spread. A woman in the second row whispered to her husband. She was hit at her own gala. A guest nearby muttered, This is about to blow up. Veronica's smile faltered. That's ridiculous, she snapped. This woman, she's trying to scam us? Do you have any idea who we are? Amara finally turned, her eyes calm but sharp. Enough people in this room seem to... The crowd chuckled nervously, the kind of laughter that happens when truth starts to feel dangerous. Renee took a hesitant step forward. Ma'am, I couldn't stay quiet. Amara's gaze softened. You did the right thing. That line, gentle, dignified, cut deeper than any outburst could. It wasn't anger, it was leadership. And something shifted. Guests who'd been glued to their seats now straightened. A man near the bar whispered, She's not just calm, she's in charge. Across the hall, the event coordinator finally found her courage. She stepped onto the stage, grabbed the microphone meant for Veronica's speech, and said quietly but firmly, "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. We are currently in the presence of Miss Amara Lewis, the founder of the Lewis Foundation and tonight's principal sponsor. I have 4DS." The entire ballroom froze. Veronica's face drained of color. Richard's mouth fell open, soundless. The guard lowered his head. And then, applause not loud at first, just a scattered rhythm of realization. One clap, then another, then a wave. Renee looked overwhelmed, tears glinting behind her lashes. Amara turned to her, voice low enough only they could hear. "It always starts with one person brave enough to speak." Veronica tried to regain control, her voice sharp and trembling. "You think this little scene makes you powerful? You—" Amara cut her off without raising her tone. "No, Mrs. Bennett. It just revealed how powerless you truly are." For a long, cinematic second, no one breathed. The camera of every phone caught Veronica's silence, that tiny crack in privilege finally showing. Somewhere near the back, a man whispered, "I'm never forgetting this." The violinist, uncertain but inspired, began to play a low, trembling note, the soundtrack of quiet justice. Amara turned, thanked the coordinator with a nod, and faced the crowd again. "Now that we all know where we stand," she said softly, "let's continue the evening with dignity." She walked off stage as if nothing had happened, but everyone knew everything had. The applause faded, but tension didn't. It hung, trembling in the gold air of the ballroom, a fragile thing waiting to break. Veronica Bennett stood still, lips pressed tight, her pride bleeding behind her smile. Every camera pointed at her, and that more than the slap was what burned. She stepped forward, her heels clicking like gunshots. "You think this is over?" she hissed. "Money doesn't buy class, no matter how much of it you stole." Gasps rippled. Richard touched her arm, whispering, "Veronica, stop." But she jerked free. Her voice rose, shrill and desperate. "You people always think you can walk in, act superior, and everyone's supposed to bow down. Well, not here, not tonight. I am Doll." That was the moment the night cracked open. The violin stopped mid-note. Guests froze, half in disbelief, half in disgust. Renee, still standing by the sponsor board, whispered, "Did she just say that?" Someone near the back muttered, "She said you people—" Amara didn't move. Not 1 inch. Her silence felt heavier than Veronica's rage. Then, slow motion. Amara's gaze drifted across the marble floor, across the chandeliers, and suddenly the light changed colder, quieter. A memory flickered. 23 years old. Standing outside a luxury conference hall in Chicago, wearing the only suit she could afford. A guard blocking her path. "I'm sorry, miss. This is for delegates only." She'd shown her badge, her invitation, her name. They never looked. They only saw skin. Back then, she had walked away. Tonight, she wouldn't. The flashback dissolved. The music of the present returned, heartbeat, breath, the faint hum of cameras recording truth. Amara lifted her chin slightly. "Mrs. Bennett," she said, her tone calm, measured, terrifyingly polite. "Do you hear yourself?" Veronica laughed sharply. "I hear reality, not the fantasy you bought yourself into." The crowd shifted a wave of disbelief, anger, discomfort. People began recording again, their faces caught between horror and curiosity. Renee took a step closer, shaking her head. "Ma'am, please don't." Veronica ignored her. "This foundation, this event, you think it makes you equal? It doesn't. You'll always." She stopped, because Amara finally moved. Just 1 step, but it felt like thunder. Her voice was low, smooth, precise, every syllable sharpened by years of restraint. "Be careful," she said softly. "The last time someone tried to define what I could be, I turned their company into my first acquisition. No shouting, no anger, just fact." The guests stared. Richard's face went pale. Renee exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since the slap. Veronica tried to speak, but no sound came out. And then, Amara leaned in slightly, not threatening, just close enough for her words to sting. "You didn't slap a stranger, Mrs. Bennett. You slapped a storm, and it's already here." The entire ballroom held its breath. Somewhere, near the orchestra pit, A single champagne glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered perfectly timed punctuation. Amara turned away, slow and deliberate. Her gown shimmered under the light like armor. She walked toward the stage again, phone in hand. "Nia," she said quietly, voice calm through the earpiece. "Prepare the board feed. We'll address the donors directly." "Yes, ma'am," came the reply. "Protocol ready." Veronica stood frozen, the first tremor of fear crossing her face. Because for the first time, she understood, this woman wasn't here to survive the night. She was here to end it on her terms. The ballroom lights dimmed slightly, not by design, but by timing. Every story has a moment where gravity changes sides. This was Amara's. She stood near the stage now, phone still in hand, calm as marble. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the mirrored wall behind her, one woman against an empire that thought she didn't belong. "Nia," she said, her voice low but firm. "Activate the clause. Full display." Well. Across the city, in a glass office tower overlooking the skyline, Nia Thompson, her chief operations aide, typed 3 commands into the Lewis Foundation system. Within seconds, the screens behind the Gala's stage flickered from the Bennett family's charity branding to a blue and gold crest. Lewis Holdings. Gasps spread like wildfire. The orchestra fell silent mid-tune. Guests stared as the new banner appeared across the LED panel's live broadcast countdown ticking down from 10, 9, 8. Veronica turned sharply. "What's happening?" Amara didn't answer. She didn't need to. The truth was already filling the room pixel by pixel. At 0, the lights focused on her. Her voice came through the mic, not rehearsed, not scripted, just measured. "Good evening. Since we're all gathered here under false assumptions, allow me to clarify them." The crowd shifted uneasily. A few guests raised their phones again. Amara continued. "Tonight's event, as you now see, is not the Bennett Charity Gala. It is the annual Lewis Foundation fundraiser, hosted and financed by Lewis Holdings. My team and I invited you here to discuss equity and philanthropy. Ironically, we just witnessed the lesson live." She let the silence breathe. Every syllable hit like a gavel. Richard Bennett's face drained of color. This can't be legal." "It's documented," Amara interrupted softly. "And streamed. You see, Mrs." Bennett ensured that by making a scene. The camera feed on the main screen shifted playback footage from 5 minutes ago, the slap, the words, "You don't belong here." A collective gasp rose from the audience. Veronica lunged toward the tech booth. "Turn that off!" But the technician, now pale and sweating, shook his head. "It's connected to the Foundation's system. We can't override it." Renee stood frozen, her tablet glowing in her hands. The confirmation email from the Lewis Foundation still visible, time-stamped, verified, proof that everything Veronica had claimed was a lie. Amara looked toward her gently. "Miss Miles," she said, "thank you for your integrity tonight. My HR department will be in touch." Renee's eyes widened. Thank you, ma'am." The guests erupted in low murmurs. Some clapped quietly. Others whispered, "That's her. That's the CEO." Veronica's last thread of composure snapped. "You can't humiliate me in front of my donors." Amara turned slowly, her tone razor smooth. "You did that yourself. I'm just restoring the truth." Her assistant's voice came faintly through her earpiece. "Board members are watching live, ma'am. Social feeds are trending already." Amara exhaled slow, calm, centered. "Then let them see what grace looks like under fire." 18. The big screen cut to a new image, a list of corporate partnerships, the Bennett Group among them now labeled in red text, "Terminated effective, immediately." Veronica staggered backward. Richard caught her arm, but his eyes told the truth. He understood exactly who he had underestimated. Amara looked at the audience, her voice soft but commanding. "We don't fight ignorance with noise. We end it with proof." The entire room stayed silent, not out of fear, but awe. She set her phone down, folded her hands, and said one final line that landed like scripture. "Power isn't loud, it's precise." And with that, the lights shifted again this time, fully in her control. The ballroom glowed blue-gold now, drenched in the colors of a name everyone suddenly knew but hadn't yet processed. Lewis Holdings. Logos flickered on every screen, dissolving the Bennett's crest like sand under tide. Amara stood center stage. No podium, no cue cards, just presence. Most of you came here tonight believing you were attending a Bennett family gala, she began, her voice calm, resonant. That assumption wasn't your fault. It was a performance. A performance built on names, not values. She paused, letting the silence settle like dust. Cameras zoomed in, phones streamed live. I was invited to my own event as a guest, she said, each word deliberate. And when I showed up without a designer gown or an entourage, I was treated as an intruder. With 59s. The screens behind her flashed the words, "Get out of here." The audio from Veronica's outburst, clipped straight from the footage. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Richard muttered under his breath, "Oh God." Veronica's hands trembled. The diamond bracelet she clung to glittered like chains. Amara continued, "What happened here tonight isn't new. It's what happens every day when appearance decides respect. But here's the difference: I built the room you just tried to throw me out of." With faced panic, murmurs rolled across the floor, disbelief turning into revelation. A man near the back whispered, "She owns the foundation." Another voice followed, "She is the foundation." Then, the big screen displayed it in bold white letters. Amara Lewis, CEO and founder, Lewis Holdings. The applause didn't come yet, no one dared move. It wasn't a cheer-worthy moment, it was judgment hour. Veronica took a shaky step forward, trying to salvage her tone. We didn't know. You should have said something." Amara's smile was faint, surgical. "You didn't ask." That line sliced through the air like a blade. Phones caught it instantly. Somewhere in the crowd, someone whispered, "That's the quote." Amara took one more step toward the front row, where the Bennetts sat like marble statues, cracking under heat. "You called me an imposter at a gala I financed, in a building I own, celebrating a cause I created. You didn't just insult a woman, you insulted the idea that power could look like me." For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then the murmurs turned to low applause, cautious at first, then rising people realizing they'd just witnessed the kind of reversal that becomes history. Veronica tried to speak again, but Amara raised her hand slightly. "No, Mrs. Bennett, you've spoken enough tonight. It's time you listened." To where? Behind her, the feed changed again, photos of scholarships, community programs, and investment funds. The Lewis Foundation had launched across 5 continents. "These are the reasons we gather," Amara said softly. "Not for ego, not for family names, but for equity. And tonight, every camera in this room will remind the world what happens when arrogance meets accountability." The applause swelled, now no longer polite, but electric. Guests stood, clapping through their shock. Renee wiped her cheeks, smiling through disbelief. Amara turned once more toward Veronica. Her final words were calm, exact, unforgettable. "You slapped me to silence me. I spoke, and the world heard louder than you ever will." The lights dimmed to a slow fade. Veronica collapsed into her seat, small under the weight of her own echo. And Amara walked off stage without looking back, the quiet victor in a war she never started but had just ended. The applause thundered through the ballroom like a storm finally breaking. For a few seconds, Veronica Bennett just stood there, frozen under the spotlight that no longer belonged to her. Her painted smile cracked, her hand trembling around the champagne flute she'd been clinging to like proof of status. Then the sound hit her a different rhythm now. The click of notifications, the hum of live streams. Dozens of phones buzzing in pockets, messages flying across social media faster than anyone could stop them. Number, Lewis Foundation. Number, Amara Lewis. Number, you didn't ask. The words, her words, replayed on every screen. "You slapped me to silence me. I spoke, and the world heard louder than you ever will." It was already viral. Richard leaned toward his wife, whispering urgently, "We need to control this call, PR, shut it down before the press." But Amara's team was faster. The stage screen blinked again. A live ticker scrolled across the bottom. Breaking. Lewis Holdings terminates Bennett Group partnership, effective immediately. Gasps echoed, a sharp intake of disbelief. One of the donors stood abruptly. "That can't be right. The Bennetts run." "They did," someone else interrupted quietly. "Not anymore." Cameras panned as Amara reappeared at the edge of the stage, no longer speaking, simply watching. She didn't need to say another word. Her silence now spoke louder than Veronica's years of influence. At the far end of the ballroom, the event coordinator took a call, her expression shifting from shock to awe. CNN just picked it up, she whispered. They're calling it the Gala incident. Richard dropped into his chair, face ashen. Veronica tried to regain her poise, stammering into the mic that no one had given her permission to use. This is a misunderstanding. We've always supported diversity. The mic cut off. Amara had signaled the tech crew. The room's sound belonged to her now. Behind her, another image replaced the Gala footage, a clean official email from Lewis Holdings' legal department. All ongoing contracts and accounts associated with the Bennett Foundation are hereby suspended pending investigation into misconduct and breach of partnership ethics. It was over. The audience murmured, half in shock, half in satisfaction. A few clapped small, steady claps that grew louder with each passing second. Renee was among them, standing tall at the back, tablet still glowing. Veronica turned to Amara, voice breaking. "You've destroyed us!" Amara met her gaze calm, unwavering. "No, I just revealed what you built your power on." A flicker of guilt crossed Richard's face. He stood, straightened his jacket, and said softly, "She's right." He walked away. Cameras followed. The press outside could already be heard, the muffled roar of reporters gathering, flashes bursting through the glass doors. Amara stepped down from the stage, her stride slow, deliberate. As she passed Veronica, she paused just long enough to say, "Apologies are useful before the world is watching, not after." Then she kept walking. The security guard, the same one who'd hesitated before, opened the door for her this time not out of duty, but respect. Guests parted, forming a silent corridor as she exited. Outside, the night air hit cool and bright. Her car waited, sleek and quiet. Nia's voice came through her earpiece. "Ma'am, every network's covering it. They're calling it the slap that ended a dynasty." Amara smiled faintly, eyes on the city lights. "Not a dynasty," she said softly. "A delusion." And with that, she stepped into the car, the door closing with the finality of justice served quietly, perfectly, in real time. Inside the ballroom, the applause rose again, not for spectacle, but for truth finally seen. Outside the hotel, night had never looked so clear. The rain that threatened earlier had passed, leaving the city glistening under streetlight reflections. The car door closed behind Amara with a soft click, the kind of sound that ends a chapter. Inside, the noise of the gala still echoed, reporters flooding the marble foyer, guests whispering her name like it was a brand new legend. But Amara didn't look back. She sat still in the back seat, hands resting loosely on her lap, calm, collected, unshaken. Nia's voice came softly through the earpiece. "We've confirmed the headlines, ma'am. Every network has it. Billionaire Family slapped a black CEO at her own gala. It's everywhere." Amara smiled faintly. "Good. Let it travel, let it sting. Here's ability as life imperative the casted it is ruled." She looked out the window as the city rolled by, people walking, traffic lights changing, unaware that something monumental had just shifted. In her mind, the night replayed in pieces. The slap, the silence, the witness, the reveal. But what stayed wasn't the humiliation. It was the choice she'd made right after. To stand still. To let dignity speak louder than noise. The car stopped at a red light. Across the street, she saw a young girl in a thrifted blazer waiting for a bus, holding a folder close to her chest. She looked nervous, hopeful, determined. Amara smiled again, softer this time. She knew that look, the face of someone trying to belong in a world that kept saying no. Her voice, calm and reflective, filled the moment like a narration. "You don't change the world by shouting at it. You change it by outlasting it." Is disgraded man. Cut to the Bennett family exiting the ballroom in silence, flashbulbs exploding, microphones chasing. Veronica's face pale, mascara streaked, reporters shouting questions she couldn't answer. Richard walking 2 steps behind, his empire dissolving in real time. Voiceover continues. They thought silence was surrender, but silence is strategy. It's the sound before the storm. Back in the car, Amara took off her earring, the one tilted by the slap. She turned it in her fingers, the diamond catching light like proof that even damage can shine. Her phone buzzed. Nia again. "Ma'am, the board wants to issue an official statement by morning." "Already done," Amara replied. "Schedule it for 9 a.m. headline slot." "What should the headline read?" Amara looked out the window again, eyes steady, voice firm. "Dignity hits harder than hate. Zactivus ire." In the minder, cut to. The next morning, newspapers spread across breakfast tables, phone screens lighting up across continents. Her photo on every cover, standing tall beneath the banner Lewis Holdings Redefining Power. Renee's voice comes in, narrating softly over a montage of news clips. She didn't just win a fight, she rewrote the rule book. Back to Amara walking into her office tower, greeted by staff who stand as she enters. The same poise, the same calm, but something in the air feels different now. Lighter, broader. She stops by a window overlooking the city. The skyline stretches ahead, gold against morning blue. She places her hand lightly on the glass. "Every insult leaves a mark," she whispers. But some marks turn into signatures, fade out. The final line appears on screen, in white over black. She didn't raise her voice. She raised the standard. Music swells, low piano, strings, then silence. Morning arrived like a verdict, crisp, golden, merciless. By sunrise, the story had outgrown the ballroom. It was on every screen, every feed, every breakfast conversation from New York to Nairobi. Number Amara Lewis trended at #1 worldwide. Number You Didn't Ask, her 6-word mic drop became a rallying cry. Clips of the slap, the silence, the reveal, played on loop. But the internet wasn't mocking her. For once, the world was listening to a black woman in power not because she shouted, but because she didn't. CNN replayed the footage with the headline, "When Grace Fights Back." BBC called it, "The Quiet Revolution of Amara Lewis." And one op-ed in The Atlantic simply read, "Dignity as Weapon." In the comments, thousands wrote, "She didn't fight to humiliate them. She fought to remind us." That's what control looks like. No fists, no rage, just truth. Meanwhile, the Bennett's world collapsed in real time. Stock values dipped. Sponsors pulled out. Their PR firm resigned. A leaked memo showed how Veronica had falsified donor credits for years, using Amara's foundation funds to inflate her image. The press tore it apart within hours. Outside their mansion that evening, protesters gathered with signs reading, "Apologize to Amara. Power looks like her." Richard stayed inside, blinds closed. Veronica tried an apology video, trembling voice, smudged mascara, but it only deepened the wound. The top comment read, "You don't get to rewrite what the camera already showed." Across town, at Lewis Holdings headquarters, the mood was different. Renee stood in the lobby, holding a visitor badge she didn't need anymore. Amara had offered her a full-time position that morning, executive liaison for community partnerships. Her first official day. As Amara entered, the staff rose instinctively. Not out of fear, out of respect. "Good morning, Miss Lewis." She smiled gently. "Good morning, team. Let's make this one count." End. The camera followed her through the hall, sunlight streaking across polished marble. On the wall behind her, a new framed quote, bold and simple. "Silence is not weakness. It's timing." Renee lingered for a moment, eyes on the quote. The same calm she'd witnessed at the gala now lived in her expression, quiet power, contagious. Cut to a coffee shop miles away. 2 young women watched the viral clip on a tablet. One whispered, she didn't even raise her voice. The other smiled. She didn't need to. Cut again. A corporate conference room in Tokyo, a classroom in Lagos, an office in Atlanta, the same video playing, the same line repeating in captions. "You didn't ask." Amara's influence had outgrown the event. It had become a mirror. Night returned. Amara stood on her penthouse balcony, city lights sprawling below. The world buzzed beneath her, alive with noise. But she stood still, the calm center of it all. Naya joined her, holding a folder. "Every network wants an exclusive interview." Amara shook her head. "No interviews. Let the story speak for itself." Nia smiled. "They'll call you the woman who turned humiliation into history." Amara looked out toward the horizon, voice soft, certain. History doesn't need heroes. It needs proof. She turned away, stepping back into the quiet, the same quiet that had once been mistaken for weakness, now recognized as command. Fade out. Text on screen. She didn't raise her voice. She raised the standard. The end.